guys, welcome back to my channel. Very fun video for you guys today. I saw this video going around recently on the makeup you would repurchase first if you were to lose all of your makeup or it was stolen or somehow it just disappeared. I've seen videos like this before. I've done one myself, but I think it's been like 3 or 4 years since I did a video like this. And as I was thinking about what makeup I would choose, my answers are completely different than I think they were the last time I did this, with the exception of maybe one product. So that's what we are doing today. I'm sharing with you guys if all of my makeup was to somehow vanish, these are the things that I would want to run out and purchase first. Should be a fun one. Hope you guys are excited to hear my answers. Before we get into it, a very special welcome to any of my new visitors here. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed today's video and I hope you'll consider subscribing before you leave. Also, be sure notifications are turned on. And with that said, let's get right to it. So I will first start off by saying everything that I'm talking about I am wearing on my face today. This is basically a full face of makeup that I would have to repurchase first. First thing I want to mention is a primer. I was initially thinking I would skip a primer because I don't always use a primer, but I found as I was sitting down to do my makeup with all the other products today that my skin felt really dry, and I realized, you know what, I don't know that I could actually just completely live without a primer. And the one that I would repurchase is from Flower Beauty. Probably not too surprising to you guys. I've been talking about this a lot for the last year. It's the Supernova Celestial Priming Whip. I love this stuff. It's hydrating. It feels so nice on the skin. It has this almost like cooling effect, and it even has this little bit of like a tackiness to it, but in the very best way. Big fan of this. I was actually on the Flower Beauty website this morning looking into another product that I wanted to pick, but I've realized you cannot find this anywhere on the internet. I'll mention that when we get to it. But Flower Beauty right now, it's very hard to find some of their stuff. They are still selling their products on like Ulta Beauty and a couple other places online, but their website is kind of down and going through like a big change, which I'm a little bit nervous about, but hopefully you can still find this for a while. I feel like I should buy a backup now while it's still available, but this would definitely be one that I would need to repurchase right away. For the foundation, I would repurchase. This one was kind of tricky. There are so many foundations that I love, but I decided to go with something drugstore that just checks all of my boxes, and it's the Milani Conceal and Perfect foundation. Funny enough, I have a lot of other foundations that I think are kind of more holy grails for me, like my L'Oreal foundation, but that foundation I usually like to mix with other foundations. I also find a lot of foundations are almost never the perfect shade match for me. This one is the perfect shade match for me all on its own, which is the biggest reason that I picked this one. And besides that, it's just a really good foundation. So I use shade number 3, which is such a good match for me. Unless it's the middle of winter and I'm not doing any sort of self-tanning lotion or anything like that. This might be a little bit dark, but it's really good. The undertone's great for me. And I love the coverage of this. It's long wearing, it's hydrating. It's been a favorite of mine for several years, but since I found this new shade, I decided this would be like a one-stop foundation for me that I would be perfectly happy with for as long as I need it to be. Next up, concealer. I waffled back and forth between 2 choices. The one I went with is the Revlon concealer because you can still find this. It is getting harder and harder to find. I think right now it's out of stock on Walmart's website online. Some of the shades are out of stock on Target. I found most of the shades on Amazon and they're super cheap. They're like $4.95. But I have my suspicions that this is not going to be around forever. So this would be my first pick. If this somehow disappeared, the next choice would have to be the Kosas concealer. Obviously I went with this one because it's so much more affordable, and this is just such a good concealer for me. Works under my eyes, works as an eyelid primer, works on the perimeter of my face. It's been a favorite of mine for years and definitely one I would want to repurchase first. Okay, some brow products. These ones probably won't be too big of a surprise for you guys. The first one would be this right here, the e.l.f. Shape and Stay Brow Pencil. I could probably live without this thing, but it's so cheap I would definitely run out and buy it. It's like $2 or $3, easy to find. I like this as the first product that I put in my brows just to get them set in place before I fill them in. It's a staple for me, one that I wouldn't have like a lot of heartburn over repurchasing. As for the pencil, I decided to go with the Ulta Beauty Ultra Slim Brow Pencil. Part of me would like to repurchase the Precisely My Brow from Benefit. I do like that pencil just a little bit better than this one. I think it has like a little bit more precision and stiffness to it, but I'm really splitting hairs, and my feeling is when I tally all this up, I'm definitely gonna wanna lean towards this one because that one is kind of pricey if you're not buying it on sale. And if I had to buy all this makeup at once, it would hurt a little bit. So I wouldn't mind saving a little bit of money with this one. It's a great pencil. I use the shade Ash Taupe. It's been a favorite of mine for years. This is actually a recommendation from you guys. And it is very good. It's still 10 bucks if you can't find it on sale, but I do find that these go on sale pretty often on the Ulta website. And I could buy it for 10. I would be thrilled about it, but I could do it. And last, I decided to go with the e.l.f. Brow Lift. I was back and forth between this and the ABH Brow Freeze. I'm back and forth on these products all the time. There are some things I like more about the ABH, but there are some things I like more about this one. This one I think is a little bit easier to use. I don't think it holds in place as well, but I also don't think it's as like prone to goofing up. If I use too much of the ABH, it can get really, really pasty and cakey in my brows and just be very difficult to work with my brows and set them in place. This one's just a little bit easier, a little bit softer, and it does still do a good job of kind of holding things in place for most of the day. So that would take care of my brows and my skin. Oh, one more thing for my skin that I would absolutely have to repurchase is the Rimmel Stay Matte Powder. Easy one to repurchase. I'm actually ready to repurchase one right now because I can't stand when it starts to get this pan in it and then it kind of crumbles around the edges. So I'm actually on my way very soon to buy another one of these. I love the stuff, super affordable, really lightweight. I mean, this does nothing more than just set your foundation down so it doesn't crease so easily. It doesn't give you any coverage. I use the transparent one. I also have used the lightest shade. I can't remember what that one is called. Not an exciting product, but one that I would definitely find myself needing. Bronzer. This one was tricky. I wanted to pick the Flower Beauty Sunrise L1 Heatwave Bronzer. That is probably one of my all-time favorite staple bronzers, but you cannot find that anywhere online, which totally breaks my heart. It is currently out of stock at every place that I could find, even on Amazon, which is where I found it the last time I kind of mentioned it for you guys and linked it for you. So sadly, I cannot pick that one. And if I had to go with my second favorite, I ended up going with this one right here. This is from Fenty. This is the Fenty Cream Bronzer in Butter Biscuit. This is a great cream bronzer, really easy to blend. It goes on super quick. Perfect shade. It's a little bit warming and a little bit sculpting at the same time, which is just how I like my bronzers to be. I think if I wanted to save a little bit of money, I would maybe go with the e.l.f. Putty Bronzer in Tan Lines. I think that one is nearly as good, but I just think I like the shade and like the blendability of this one just a little bit more. There are a lot of bronzers that I could pick. If it came to a cream bronzer, I have so many cream bronzers that I love, but this one still I think holds my #1 spot in my cream bronzers. For my blush, I ended up going with the Flower Beauty Gel Crush Lip and Cheek in the shade Peach Crush. You guys know I love these Gel Crush Lip and Cheeks. I've been raving about them for a couple of years now. This is my favorite shade because I think it's the most, it's like if you were to take all the other shades and kind of like combine them together, this would be like a mixture of everything else. It's kind of warm and peachy, but it's also soft and pinky. It's kind of brightening, but also kind of neutral at the same time. Tends to go with anything. It is what I'm wearing on my cheeks today, which I think I mentioned at the beginning. That was probably obvious, didn't need to mention it again. I kind of went back and forth between this one and the MAC Glow Play Blush in Blush Please. That's another favorite of mine, but I ended up going with this one because it is kind of a multi-purpose product as well. I can use this on my lips. I don't do it a ton, but since the rest of my makeup has disappeared, this would be a good one to have as kind of like a multi-purpose product as well if I want a little bit more color on my lips. So I actually don't have this on my lips right now, but let's just add a little bit more just so you guys can see what this looks like on my lips. I don't think I've ever used it on my lips on camera for you guys. Sometimes I do use it on my lips, especially if I'm carrying this with me, if I'm traveling or if it's in my purse. They're hydrating, they give a little bit of color, and I love how these perform and look on my cheeks. They are so, so pretty. Next up is highlighter. I would obviously need to go out and repurchase a highlighter. Highlighter is one of my favorite products to put on. I wear it every day, even though I don't think it's like a necessary product to wear. It's one of the things that makes me happy when I put it on, even more so than other makeup products. And the one that I decided to go with is the Revlon Skin Lights Highlighter in Daybreak Glimmer. This is still holding my #1 spot in my highlighter collection. I briefly considered the Nabla Ozone highlighter, which is another favorite of mine, mainly because this situation happened to me just a couple of days ago, which I was so sad about that this lid finally broke. I've had this thing for a while, like 3 years now. But despite the packaging mishap, I love this highlighter so much. It is the perfect shade for my skin tone, and I think this would work for so many different skin tones. It's like a gold that's very, very light. So if you find like a lot of gold tones, if you have really fair skin and they're just too dark on you, I feel like this one would work pretty good for most people. It's just such a pretty formula. I absolutely love it. It's so beautiful. I feel like I don't need to say much about it because I've raved about this thing for a very, very long time, and it is still my very, very favorite. I could not live without this stuff. All right, eyeshadow palette. I'm sure you guys were curious what I would pick. This was like the one that required quite a bit of thinking. It's hard for me to even imagine that all of my eyeshadow eyeshadows would disappear. Like, that's like apocalyptic to me. Maybe that's a little strong, but seriously, it would be heartbreaking. So I tried to imagine what eyeshadow palette would I feel the biggest void in my life not having, and that would have to be the Enduring Love palette from Sydney Grace. It was tough to make this decision, but this palette I've been attached to for a very, very long time. The last time I did an official ranking my top 10 eyeshadow palettes of all time, I'm pretty sure this was at the #1 spot. I haven't done a video like that for quite a while, but I think this would probably still hold that spot because it's just such a perfect color story. It's mostly neutral. It has quite a bit of pink in it, but also a lot of neutrals. I can't get enough of the Sydney Grace formula, especially their metallics. They are out of this world. I will insert a close-up of it with some swatches for you guys right here so you can just admire the intensity of these swatches. These shadows, Sydney Grace shadows, swatch better than any other shadows in my entire collection, including my Natasha Denona, which I love on my eyes, but there's something about the pigmentation of Sydney Grace, especially her metallics, that is next level, and they perform so well. I love the color story. I am wearing this on my eyes today, as I mentioned. I have these two matte pinks up through the crease and outer corner, and then I have this kind of like silvery shade right here on the outer half of the lid, this metallic shell pink on the inner half of the lid, and then a mixture of this black and this brown kind of smoked out in this outer corner. Oh, I love this look. I just couldn't imagine my life without this palette. If I needed just one palette to give me my eyeshadow fix, this would be the one. And even though it's expensive, you do get a ton of product in here. So if I had just one palette, I don't know how long I'm gonna be without the rest of my makeup collection, but if I had just one palette that needed to like go the distance, because there's so much in each of these pans, this thing would last for quite a while. Next up is an eyeliner. Is it any surprise that I would have to go purchase my Wet n Wild Simma Brown now? To be honest, I don't know if even in this hypothetical situation where I lost all my makeup or everything was stolen, I still don't know if I would need to go repurchase this because I have these things laying around everywhere. I think I have one in my car. I have one in my purse. I have a couple like hanging around in some junk drawers upstairs. I have so many backups of these. Anytime I'm out and about, if they happen to have some there, and it's been a while since I bought one, I'll usually just throw one into my cart. But if somehow they all disappeared, I would definitely go out and repurchase one. I use this thing almost every single day. Absolutely love it. It's a staple for me. I've been mentioning this since day one of my YouTube channel, like 5.5 years ago. Okay, I obviously would need a mascara. The one I decided to go with is the Sky High mascara from Maybelline. This is such a good all-purpose mascara. It's easy to work with. It washes off relatively easily without a makeup remover, but it's still water resistant. I don't use the waterproof version. This is just the regular version, and it is quite water resistant. So if you have pretty watery eyes, this thing holds up really well to my watery eyes, especially in the springtime. It is super cold and windy here. If you spend any time outdoors, your eyes are going to water. And this stuff works fine for me in those situations. It's not clumpy at all. It is very lengthening. It's not my most volumizing mascara, but it does a pretty good job. Holds a curl pretty well. Just a good staple mascara for me. One that I've repurchased several times, and I don't repurchase a lot of mascaras over and over again, but this is one I think I'll be repurchasing for quite a while. And that leaves us with the lips. So I decided to go kind of drugstore with my lip products. I would first repurchase my LA Girl Ultimate Intense Wear Auto Liner. This one's in Nonstop Nude. Good staple for me. I also love my Natasha Denona lip liner. I actually just bought a backup of the Natasha Denona Calla lip liner. And I love my Charlotte Tilbury lip liners, but this one I think works just as well, and it's a fraction of the price of those ones. You can get these for like $5.49, I think. It's a perfect shade. It goes with just about anything that I put on top. It's good just kind of on its own. That's basically how I was wearing it before I put the Flower Beauty on. I just have this lip liner lined around my lips, kind of smudged in, and then a gloss that we'll get to in a sec on top. I think I've repurchased it 2 or 3 times, and I will repurchase this for a very long time, and I would definitely need this right away. If I had no makeup, this would be one of the first things I would buy. That leaves us with my last product. I hope I didn't miss anything, and that's a lip gloss. I would definitely buy the Lifter Gloss from Maybelline in the shade Opal. It's kind of overtaken. I mean, I love my Fenty Sweet Mouth. That's been a favorite of mine for years, but I feel like this is a good dupe for that gloss. It's a little bit more affordable. Actually, I don't think this thing is way more affordable than the Fenty because you get so much product inside the original Fenty gloss. This one, you don't get quite as much product. But that said, I actually like the smell of this one a little bit more. I think I even like the packaging a little bit more. It's basically like a clear, sheer pink, slightly reflective, kind of sparkly gloss, but the sparkles are super, super tiny. Goes with anything. It's comfortable. It's very, very slightly sticky, but not overly sticky. I actually think this is like on a level of stickiness. I think it's a little more sticky than the Tower 28, a little less sticky than the NYX Butter Gloss. But of everything that I thought of today, this was one of the easiest ones for me to think of. Like when I thought of, okay, what would I need for my lips? I knew instantly this is what I would have to buy. And that that is everything. Those are all of the products I would repurchase very first if all of my makeup somehow disappeared. And in case you're curious how much all of this would come to if I actually needed to go out and buy all of this makeup, I tallied it all up and it comes to $188. Quite a bit of money, but there are a lot of products here. I think most of these are drugstore. I had just a couple things that were high end. I could probably trim that down just a little bit, although I don't know that I'd be willing to like get a drugstore palette. I feel like I would need the higher end eyeshadow palette. The other stuff I might be okay with some drugstore alternatives, but these are the things, if money was not like the biggest option, these are what I would want to go purchase first. But that is gonna do it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me give you one last reminder, please subscribe before you leave. It's gonna be a fun month. I have a lot of drugstore videos coming up this month, so be sure to check back for those. And I will see all of you guys very soon in my next video. Bye. I can't think too deeply about that number. If I tallied up all the makeup in my collection, it makes me a little bit sick to my stomach. Let's not go there. I can't help but wonder like, okay, well, what's the like scenario here? Like, did my house burn down? Are the kids okay? I should probably check on that first before I run out and buy my makeup. Is it the apocalypse? Like, are we really worried about the makeup that we're gonna be wearing on our face?